Well, good morning, DCL podcast fans. We are hanging at the Cove again this morning, and joining me as always is our amazing co-host, Christy, all the way down in Florida. And how you doing today, Christy?
I am well. How are you, Steve?
And of course, Chris down there in the Valley, hanging out with Nicolas Cage and the Valley Girls. How you doing today, Chris?
Good. I'm surprised you're a pilot, so you do probably realize that I live in the Valley. But I was going to say, I'm surprised that I live in the Valley.
Well,
I literally live in the valley that they talk about when they say Valley Girl.
I wasn't sure if you even know what that movie was.
Well, I mean, I've seen Clueless, and Clueless is a classic Valley Girl tale. So that's where I live, San Fernando Valley.
Christy, you shaking your head. You've never seen either one of those movies?
I have, of course, seen Clueless. Hello.
Okay. But you never saw Valley Girl or heard of Valley Girl?
I have heard of it.
Okay. Well, I'm not saying it was a great movie or anything like that, but I think that was the first one I think I saw Nicolas Cage in. So there you go.
Oh my gosh.
And now
you know that they're rebooting National Treasure on Disney Plus?
I did hear that. That's what I was just about to say is now he's off hunting treasure. So
yeah.
Well, welcome everybody. We're kind of hanging out at the Cove this morning. Adventures by Disney released their 2022 land releases, and that's always exciting to see new products coming out from the Disney company. So, but before we jump into it, I wanted to touch on a couple different things. One question that we got from a listener, and then just kind of an idea. One of the comments we got recently is, "Hey, you're a DCL podcast, but a lot of times you don't talk about Disney Cruise Line." And if you go to our mission statement, did you guys know we had a mission statement?
I did know.
Yeah. So Disney Cruise Line is.
So Disney familiar with our mission statement.
I'm kidding. We don't have a mission statement, but I did put it out there initially.
I mean, you do have an idea.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I put it out there. The Disney Cruise Line is always going to be our home port here on the DCL podcast, but we cover a lot of different travel adventures. One of them that we really love is Adventures by Disney, and of course, Run Disney as well. So those are kind of some of the different things that we cover. So just to jump into the question quick, we had a question about our DCL 101 series. We've done a lot of different shows on the 101 series, and one of the questions was, why can't they go past episode 125, I believe? And that has to do with Libsyn, who hosts our podcast. It's our main podcast host, and they limit the amount of podcasts that you can see through Apple Podcasts in particular. If you go to Spotify or iHeartRadio, you can go back and see all of our episodes. But one of the things go ahead, Christy.
You can also Google DCL podcast or DCL 101 DCL podcast. I just did it. And all of our episodes, most of our episodes that we cover on it are there. So episode 112 on the different staterooms, Pirate Night, choosing your cruise. So there's all the different 101 episodes you can find that way.
And
right. And I've been kind of hesitant.
The possibility of the cruise industry changing as it starts to sail again. Some of those 101 episodes may not apply, at least initially, when we first start sailing. Who knows what they might change. And so there's something to be said about this is what it has always been, but maybe the future holds something new, and then we have to record new 101 episodes to meet that. Or maybe the Wish will just have all new classes of rooms and just have a completely different system, so the travel agents get really, really stressed.
That sounds about right.
Right. And that's part of the reason my hesitation to even do another DCL 101 series is because we don't know how it's going to change. One of the things that I have seen change, because I went through the app to book our online check-in and then also our port adventures, is it used to be that you had to actually go through, remember this, Christy? You had to go through and go through that online check-in first, hurry through that so you could get to the port adventure so you could book your port adventures. That's no longer the case. You can go onto it and go immediately into your port adventures and then go back and do your online check-in. Now, the one thing that the online check-in gets you is your port arrival, which could be important to people depending upon if you want that first port arrival or the earliest port arrival. But that is a change that I've seen. And so that's something that if you go back and listen to one of our initial 101 series, we talk about, having to hurry through that check-in, and that has already changed. So I think that we'd like to redo some of those once the cruises get sailing and we kind of see how those things have changed, to your point, Chris. And I think our biggest strength is from our podcast is you, Christy, just the amazing cruises and all the different the handle that you have on the different cruise lines and being able to help people with that. And then you, Chris, down to Disneyland and all the experience you have down there and the trips as well. So we really want to do the best we can to get you the most accurate information. So one other thing I want to touch on real quick before we talk about Adventures by Disney is Delta Airlines is releasing their earnings on Thursday. And you're going, why am I talking about Delta Airlines releasing their earnings on Thursday? Well, I was texting with somebody just recently about trying to find airline seats to Nassau to go on a cruise. Well, he was finding $1,000 per person each way to Nassau off the West Coast. And I don't necessarily ever want to tell people when to book something, but if it comes to pass that things really do open up and travel starts to happen this summer, I can tell you from the airline's perspective, there are not enough seats to meet the demand if travel comes back to the way they're expecting it to be. So what does that mean? You're going to see a pretty significant increase on some tickets depending upon where you're going, especially places that are very positive. Christy. So
I had a client 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, booking Walt Disney World for the summer, for June. So not a popular, it's not 4th of July week, okay? Regular middle to the end of June. From Detroit to Orlando, it was $600 and $800 for coach. And
round trip,
it was like
or one way
round trip, but
that's still, I know, a ton of money, but I'm just like,
the
when
most
Steve
perfect,
said 1,000 each way to Nassau.
Well, from California, so that's a very long flight. Detroit to Orlando, 2 hours and 20 minutes. And it is usually, you can find the most perfect flight times typically for $350. That's paying full price, like a lot on any regular day. And it was $600 and $800. So Delta knows apparently the demand is there. And they are using the goodwill that they gained by blocking the middle seats for so long. And there, people like from Detroit, for example, they know that they have that market, and you're either flying Spirit or you're flying Delta. And people don't want the Spirit experience, but that's really expensive. I was like, there's no way. And I logged in and there it was. So this summer it's going to be expensive. Yeah. So I guess point being, if there's something that you really want to do and you're planning on it, you might start planning early as far as your travel goes, getting you there. All right, let's jump into Adventures by Disney. Super excited to see them come out with their 2022 land release. Unlike the cruise lines, there are adventures going right now. There's one that started down in Costa Rica, which is happening right now. I think it was a week ago that the first one kicked off. It was in North America. It was in Arizona, Utah. So it's good to see Adventures by Disney actually, the adventures going. So unlike the ships right now, there's a potential for you to actually go on an adventure with Adventures by Disney. But Christy, let's start with you. What is, for those who don't know anything about Adventures by Disney, what is Adventures by Disney and what makes it so special? Adventures by Disney is Disney's way to have a guided tour. So it is basically the way I just envisioned it in my head, which is horrible, but it's like the old ladies getting on a bus and going to tour around. I don't know why my head just went there. You guys, no, it's not that way. No, it is not that. But this is what I just envisioned.
It's like the cool mom version of that.
It is the cool kids version of going on a bus and moving around. So Adventures by Disney is Disney's. Let me just say, I did not sleep well last night, you guys. So who knows what's coming out of my mouth. I just want to tell you that in advance. But Adventures by Disney is Disney's the answer to the guided tour. So you are going to have 2 amazing tour guides. You are also going to have local tour guides. It is putting you in a group setting to get you from place to place to place so that you can do an amazing tour without doing any of the work. They have thought of everything for you and have gone through every detail so that you can have an amazing guided tour vacation. And I think a couple of things to point that. You know, both. We're not editing. We hate that. We're not. A couple other things to point out. Most meals are included. The hotel stays are included. Transportation during the adventure is included. You've got to get yourself there and back. You talked about 2 adventure guides, right? Yes. Yeah.
The two adventure guides also, they have local guides. So if you're in Germany, you'll have local guides joining you to give you, you know, their story of what they know about their country, which is always exciting. You get some, definitely from several listeners that we've had on talking about their experiences, you definitely get some experiences that you can't replicate just by yourself. And one of them is when you go to the Sistine Chapel, when you go to Italy, a lot of times they go in the evening when the crowds are gone and you've got the place to yourself for, I think it's like 30 minutes to almost an hour, right, Christy? Is that what we've heard? And I don't want, obviously things can change, but that's kind of an example of what you're getting from this product, which makes it pretty amazing. It's a hassle-free travel from start to finish. And I guess the other thing, Christy, do you have go ahead.
You get to walk like a gladiator. This, my husband was so excited about. I remember we've talked about this, Steve.
Yeah.
At the Colosseum in Rome. So you get to like walk out. I believe Disney is the only group, I could be wrong about that, but that can actually walk out and be a gladiator in the Colosseum.
Yeah, how cool is that? So kind of just an amazing product. You know, not everything is always guaranteed. Things can change, but those are just some examples that we've talked to from people in the past.
Let me talk about that for a second, about the things that can change, because I had talked to Disney and to Adventures by Disney about what's going to happen with these tours, because they're giving the private access or the limited viewing, and you get to see the crown jewels in a private showing if you are in England. Pretty amazing stuff. So the thing to remember is Disney says, this is what they have said, that they are going to get you an equally amazing tour. So something you have signed up for that's as amazing of what they've indicated you are signing up for, or they are going to cancel that tour. So as of right now, we don't know exactly what our European tours are going to hold and what access we are going to have, or even the Disneyland tour, what access we're going to have. But they did indicate that if they can't do something as great as what is out there, they're not going to go forward with those tours.
Good points there. Well, let's look into what they're offering. Chris, why don't you take it from there? Any new destinations in 2022 and kind of an overview of what they're offering in 2022?
So there's no new destinations except kind of, which is that these destinations were previously announced and then canceled because of a pandemic that I don't know if you've heard about. So they were going to newly go to Egypt and newly do a tour that Christy actually booked that they call Grand Europe, because it includes England, France, and Italy, which, I mean, there's a lot of amazing places in Europe, but those are three countries that I think anyone who's going to Europe would be like, I want to visit these three countries. And so to be able to do those itineraries would be obviously amazing all in one trip. So those were new in the sense that Disney's never done them yet, but they actually were announced for the latest season that got canceled. And so in theory, these tours would be going in 2022. They offer tours in Europe, North America, Asia, South America, and then they have these escapes that are like Disneyland and Wyoming. And Steve mentioned, what do you call it? The Monument Valley, Arizona, Utah, like sort of deserty excursions that actually went a week or two ago. And then they also have river cruises. You can also do an Adventures by Disney that's combined with a cruise from DCL, which is kind of interesting. And I believe those tour guides, those like special tour guides that go with your ABD, also cruise with you, and they give you access to special things on the ship, and you have your sort of itinerary planned on the ship as well. So that could be a new way to experience DCL, you know, if you have that type of resources. They also do things in Galapagos and Antarctica that they call expedition cruises. So they're basically chartering another cruise ship, not a DCL cruise ship, to go to those locations and tour the Galapagos and see those tortoises and all the cool animals and things, or to go to Antarctica and see, you know, ice and whales. So there's a lot there. most Adventures by Disney are for the family, right? But they also have some that are adult only, where if you don't have kids and you would prefer to be on a tour that didn't have children in any way, you could do that, which is super unique. I think it proves that Disney is doing their best to cater to any type of consumer, including families without kids who are like, I want a romantic or I want an adventurous trip, but a trip that's not geared towards children in any way. So they offer those as well. I'll also say, maybe if Steve, you and Christy want to help highlight some of the land adventures, what is the Egypt one? That one sparked my interest immediately because that'd be kind of cool to go to.
Probably sold out, but so bookings open today, and honestly, Egypt like almost instantly sells out every single time. So yeah.
And it's what, like tour the pyramids and see, the Sphinx, stuff like that.
Yeah. So actually, I got to spend a lot of time in Egypt, believe it or not, in Cairo when I was in the Air Force. And it's just an amazing country, such friendly people. And the history, bar none, is just amazing. So Egypt is super cool. You start off in Cairo, you get a chance to see Giza and the pyramids. You get to experience all the city of Cairo has to offer. And then you get on a river cruise down the Nile where you go down to Luxor, which is the Valley of the Kings, which is where Tutankhamun's tomb was found. And so you get to go down there and explore that. And then it ends up winding up to the Sinai Peninsula, I believe, up on the Red Sea. And if you don't know anything about the Red Sea has some of the best diving in the world. It's a huge place to go scuba diving. So it gives you a really good picture of the history of Egypt, the culture of Egypt, and seeing more than just the city of Cairo and the pyramids there. So I think if I was going to spend money on an Adventures by Disney, and I know this one's crazy expensive. None of these are cheap tours, but they're once in a lifetime things for a lot of people. I think Egypt would be amazing what they put together. It's probably it would be high on my bucket list, I guess. So Christy, why don't you talk about the grand, unless you have something, why don't you talk about the grand tour?
Yeah, I will talk about the grand tour. Before I do that really quick, one thing that Erin Foster, we had her on in episodes, let's go back to this list. I should have had that ahead of time, but we had her on episode 28. And then I believe she was on one other time after that. But so one thing she said that's unique. So you could use, and it would be amazing, ABD for Italy. Like we had said, they take care of all the details for you. They make it seamless. But these unique countries that would be more difficult to figure out on your own, like China or Japan potentially, or Egypt. These are countries that there's a unique hook for Adventures by Disney because you may not feel as comfortable going on your own to Egypt. I feel I'm well-traveled and I would not feel as comfortable going to Egypt on my own. And so the idea of having the Adventures by Disney expertise and assistance to get me through that seamless trip for a destination like that would be phenomenal. And like you said, Steve, you know that these are bucket list trips. And for some people, it's not necessarily bucket list. It's just they have their money and they can spend it, which is fantastic. But for other people, it really is about saving so that they can do this trip. And using it for a unique destination really might be the way to look at it for your family. But that grand tour in Europe is, to me, amazing. So if you really wanted to take, even as an adult or your children to Europe, this is one I would try to do. It's, as Chris discussed earlier, England, France, and Italy. You get to do the walking as a gladiator. You get to look at the crown jewels in a private viewing. You get to do these adventures that are all really bucket listy, once in a lifetime, and it's all in one. This tour starts in England and ends in Rome and sounds, and then you get to Paris in the middle. Absolutely amazing. And honestly, this is one that we had booked and the pandemic had changed our plans, so we've canceled it. But this is one that will make it on its list again for me. I am so happy that they're doing it again. And the price is really reasonable. There are some adventures, and 2022 is less expensive than 2021. even the regular full price. And there are more adventures that they're offering next year because of how quickly it sold out in 2021. I just think this is a unique and an amazing tour that somebody who really wants to bucket list their Europe adventure should really consider.
Totally agree on that. And something to, we went to Wyoming last year, and I priced out what Adventures by Disney, offered from where they stayed, from the hotel in Jackson Hole to the ranch that they went to what it would cost to book your own. It also offered a river float or down whitewater rafting and some things like that. And when you really price all those things individually together, because you're not staying at like what our family stays at, we're not staying at the Hampton Inn when when you're going around through Europe. You're staying at really nice hotels. I mean, top of the line hotels. And so I know I guess I'm just going to tell you that from pricing out that Wyoming adventure and then looking at what Disney was charging, plus the idea that they were handling everything, food, and then the guides to help you through it, it was really, really comparable to what it would have cost for us to book by ourselves. I had one other point that I wanted to throw out there about these as well, and I guess it'll come back to me. I guess to your point, Chris, you talked about, or I guess one other thing to throw out there is, due to COVID, they started private group adventures. So that's an opportunity for you to go with your own group from one person, I guess, up to 12. And they offer those in Egypt, Costa Rica, Peru, Greece, and Italy. These include one adventure guide versus the two, or I guess one adventure guide and then a local guide is what they have. Or if they don't get a local guide, they said something about having two adventure guides instead. And
they work it out so that it's seamless and wonderful.
Yeah. And pricing is actually really wasn't that crazy, was it, Christy?
It wasn't. I was looking at it and, for one, it's a little more expensive. Let's be honest. If you're on a tour that you have a complete guide to yourself, it's going to cost more. But if you had a family going, it really wasn't that unreasonable. And so if you're trying to do these amazing tours and keep your family in your own little bucket for a while longer, you can actually do that.
Definitely. So that, I don't know how much longer those will go on. If they stay popular, I suppose that they will, keep those, it's just another opportunity. Because normally how many people are on an adventure, Christy?
It's going to be about 40. And they have, I believe it's like a 25 person minimum or 20 person minimum. It depends on the tour, but usually they're
worth it to cover their costs, basically, because they need to pay for those tour guides and they need to pay for whatever.
Exactly. So it's going to be about 40 typically.
Okay. And then, Chris, why don't you just cover real quickly where they offer the river cruises? Those have already gone on sale for 2022, or do you want to touch on something else, Christy?
No, just they've gone on sale, but that isn't 40. Those river cruises have like 120 or 135 guests or something like that. So
correct.
Yeah.
It's not like an ocean cruise.
The river cruises are an interesting product because you could book those through river cruise companies and not through Disney, and they wouldn't be Adventure by Disney product. You wouldn't get those tour guides. You wouldn't get the same Disney seal on it. But I'd be super interested to see actually what the price comparison is between just booking a river cruise with one of the major river cruise companies versus booking it through Adventures by Disney. The reason I say that is because if you've never done a river cruise, it's on my bucket list, but not in the near future. But one of the cool things about river cruises is that pretty much every port you go to, they offer you 2 or 3 excursions that are included. So it's like you could pay additional for excursions, but you also could just say, I'll do one of the included excursions for the day, or I'll do nothing and just go on my own. So in that sense, it's sort of like an Adventures by Disney where the excursions are included. My assumption is that the Adventures by Disney river cruises have better excursions and more unique things because you have those tour guides and stuff like that. So I'm not saying the products are completely the same, but I haven't priced them out to see how different they are from each other. And I'd be curious to see, is AVD so much more expensive to do those river cruises, or is it about the same cost?
It's not so much more.
So yeah, I mean, in that case, I would do it just because I prefer the Disney seal, right? Like that just feels like a little more safe and a little more fun. But those cruises, they go the Seine, the Danube, and the Rhine. They also have Oktoberfest cruises through Germany and Christmas Village, which I've heard a lot of people talk about this and they say it's amazing.
Christmas markets.
Christmas markets, right. And people say it's amazing. I think it's somewhat funny to think about like sailing and getting off and going to different Christmas markets in each like German town or wherever the Christmas markets happen to be. But I love a good Christmas, so I probably would book one of those cruises. They have a Rhine that's like a food and wine festival type of sailing where it's like featuring, extra special food and wine.
Do they set up the special booths in each country, just like at Epcot?
Mm-hmm, exactly, yes. Exactly. Also, I don't know, Steve, if we've talked about this. I actually don't know if they've canceled it, but one big thing that Disney announced way back before the pandemic was that for like an extra $500 per person, you could book an excursion to Meyer Werft, where they're building the Wish. I don't know if you can still do that. I feel like maybe the pandemic might have changed excursions like that. But one of the big sales for these river cruises for DCL fans was, hey, book this river cruise, and one day your excursion will be us taking you to see us building the Wish and giving you a private tour of the build as it's being made, which, of course, the three of us were like, how many kidneys do we need to sell to get on one of those? Right. But anyway, I don't know if they're still doing that.
Well, so none of the river cruises are going yet that I know of. Right. As far as, I think there's been some. Well, I do know that there have, because a friend of mine from Germany went on a river cruise this past winter. So there are some, but I think the big ones right now aren't going. So those were slated, I believe, for the summer to be able to go to Meyer Werft. And I believe there was even a DVC river cruise, wasn't there, Christy? DVC member cruise. I think I'm totally out to lunch on that one, but
I don't remember.
I don't remember hearing about that.
Yeah, maybe I'm out to lunch on that. Anyways, long story short,
good idea for Disney though.
Yeah, those are slated for the summer right now. Those are on hold. There is one other one on the Seine, which Seine.
Sorry, I'm not very good at pronouncing European cities.
That's okay. It features a National Geographic photography sailing.
Or rivers.
Yeah, from the provincial landscapes of Monet's beloved oh man, I'm not a Francophile, I'm sorry. Giverny and to the beaches of Normandy and stunning destinations in between. You'll engage in an exciting array of photography workshops, immersive entertainment, and exhilarating activities for the whole family. So there's a National Geographic photography cruise actually on the Seine, if that one interests you.
That sounds amazing. Let me just give a little quick note about the cabins on these river cruises. The Disney has paired up with Ama Waterways, where they had made these river ships, which are not like cruise ships at all, but that there's actually some cabins for 3, which are unheard of in river cruising, and there's connecting cabins, so families can cruise together. The only difference is that the ship that's used on the Seine, because it can't be one of the longer or the wider ships, doesn't have connecting cabins and only has 2 per cabin. So you just have to keep that in mind for families. I had remembered, Steve, do you remember we had talked about this when it first came out a couple of years ago? I was like, oh my God, can I get this? Can I make this work with Blake? But we literally would have to be a family of 3 in 2 different cabins. And one of our, he was 5. That was never going to work. And so, but the other rivers, it would work out on. And so just something to keep in mind. Or if you had teenagers and you're already used to putting them in a separate cabin, like that's okay too. Or if it's not a big deal for there to be a parent and a child and a parent and a child in another cabin, there's just all these different configurations. If you have a little bit older kids, it's probably not that big of a concern.
Good points there. Okay, before we talk about when to book, how to book, and whatnot, I think there's like 2 other things we should just touch on quickly. Each one of these adventures has an age recommendation. Christy, you want to cover that?
Yeah, so Disney has a recommended age, which the minimum age of any tour is 4, I believe. But then they also have a suggested age. And this is the age where they think the children are going to be, or the child will be able to run around and do the things and get anything out of the tour sort of whatsoever. Now, your own child, it's your child's abilities and what they can handle. And if they can go for an all-day tour of something. Disney's also going to do things like when you're touring the Louvre, in which I want to do the children's version, they do a scavenger hunt instead of running around each room and getting a lecture on what you're seeing. So they have thought of some things like they know your child's not going to sit and listen to a lecture on every painting in the largest, in my opinion, museum in the world. So, but at the same time, there are minimum ages. So you just have to watch that and work it out with your travel agent, for example, to see which tours might be good based on your family's needs.
Well, we're kind of getting to the 30-minute mark, which is what I was trying to hold this to, but it's just such an amazing, fun topic to talk about. The other thing I'll just throw out there really quickly, our family's booked to go to Costa Rica next March for spring break, which we're super excited about that. But that's something else you might look at as well, just kind of what each one of these adventures offers. They go day by day. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do everything on there. Obviously, you can skip out on things, but like for Costa Rica, it's a very adventurous vacation. So it's got zip lining and whitewater rafting and snorkeling up in the when you get up to the beach areas of Costa Rica. So if you're looking more for history or something like that, I'm not saying that there's not going to be history. You're going to definitely get the culture and the history behind Costa Rica, but that's definitely a very adventurous type of adventure. So that might be something that you might want to consider as well when maybe Italy sounds amazing, but then you start looking at it, it's like, I don't want to spend that much time in museums. I would rather be ziplining over a rainforest in Costa Rica. So something just to think about, I guess. Okay, Christy, why don't you take it ahead as far as and talk about when to book, how to book.
So booking has begun immediately. And today, Adventures by Disney does not have an online booking, so you have to call. So either you can call or your no cost added to you travel agent. And honestly, in a world where travel agents have made almost no money in the last year, there really isn't disadvantages to booking with the travel agent. So if you don't have one, please consider using one because it means the world to them and doesn't necessarily, and Disney promotes the use of travel agents. They have people who also get paid because travel agents were used. So something to keep in mind. So think of using a travel agent. Previous insiders, so people who have previously traveled with Adventures by Disney can start booking today. People whose excursions were canceled can start booking today as well. So if you had a COVID-19 cancellation, then you can start booking today. Tomorrow, which is Tuesday the 13th, it's open booking for DVC members, Disney Cruise Line Platinum and Gold Castaway Club members, Golden Oak residents, and Club 33 members. If you are a Golden Oak resident and Club 33 member, if you do not have a travel agent, please reach out to Christy at packyourpixiedust.com. For the rest of us poppers, I still want to help you as well. So you can also reach out at the same email address, but you do not have to book with DVC in order to start today. You also don't have to book with Disney Cruise Line in order to book your Adventures by Disney today. You just have to have either your Disney Vacation Club member number and or your Disney Cruise Line Gold or Platinum Castaway Club number. We can always look it up, but it's easier if you have it so that we can do that booking for you. Our Wednesday, the 14th, it's open booking for everybody. One of the reasons to book in advance is that there are coupons, and who doesn't like a coupon? So especially us, because we don't have unlimited income. We like to save money where we can. So there are savings for bookings. It says bookings through July, but the thing is, and for cruises or for adventures that start in March and beyond. But the thing is that you have to be one of the first to book in order to actually get that coupon. So there's a certain number that they're going to have per sailing or per adventure. So once that number is booked up, then you just pay the full price.
And these coupons are like $10 off. So no, the coupons are up to $500 off per person. That's usually my general rule of thumb is if it's $500 off per person, I can't afford whatever the thing was that I'm buying.
That's a quarter of Chris's coffee budget per year, which, by the way, I added up during this thing because he's talking about money. I think he spends about $2,000 a year on coffee, and that's if he only has one. And that's only for one person. So remember that. If you want to pay for Adventures by Disney, you can actually
drink coffee.
Brew your own coffee. And I get very nice free trade coffee for a very affordable price. And I drink it all day and don't have to leave my house to get it. So budget saving tips from Christy.
Chris, you have a rebuttal?
No, I mean, Starbucks, I do. I spend money at Starbucks. So.
Everybody has a thing.
So I want to point out, I think for us cruise line fans, there is one other difference that we really have to point out as far as payments and cancellations, Christy.
No, it is very important. And I was going to go before I started lecturing Chris about his coffee habit. You only have 14 days to make a definitive plan on your Adventures by Disney trip. It is non-refundable unless there's another pandemic, which let's
Wait,
not
but when does it
count
have to be paid by?
on that one.
Is it paying up front the whole cost, or it's
No.
a deposit?
It's a deposit,
Okay.
and then you pay, like, I don't know what the date is, 120 days or something like that before your adventure. The balance, however, the deposit, it's not like Disney Cruise Line. It is non-refundable after that 14 days. You can move your adventure unless there's a pandemic. Let's not have another of those, though, please. This one's not over yet either, by the way. But you get to have 14 days only, and I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. 14 days only, and you can only move it one time within 2 years. And so these are really important facts. So if you're going to book something, you have to recognize that you're going to need to finish paying for that adventure, or you're going to have to take it, or you're going to lose that amount of money.
But honestly, that policy makes sense because it's not just Disney coordinating with itself to get you what you want. It's Disney coordinating with all of these other things, booking your hotels, your meals, your tours in other countries. So they need a lot of like runway to make sure that those tours have the exact number of people and the exact number of slots and all of that. So it makes sense that they're not as flexible because the product is so specialized.
So just be aware of that. It's different than Disney Cruise Line. It's kind of, you're making a commitment once you start it, but they do give you one chance to move it to a different adventure. Before we finish up, I just want to throw out that, Chris, can you talk on Disneyland as far as the booking goes? Kind of how they opened. Did they open up?
It opened like 45 minutes ago, I think.
Yeah. Do you understand the process of getting tickets? But before you start that, I want to touch on just two things quick. Can you talk on that?
I can.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I feel like I'm like just referee here.
You are the dad of the group.
All right. So past ABD podcast episodes, we've got a lot. We've had a lot of listeners come on and talk about their experiences. ABD 101, Christy and I did that one. Kind of a deeper dive as to what the product is. That's a great one. Episode 145. England and France, episode 132. Italy, episode 19. River Cruising with Aaron Foster, as you said, was episode 28. Once again, you're going to have to go to Spotify or just Google it to find it. You can't get all the way back to episode 28 with Apple Podcasts, unfortunately. Australia, episode 87. And Jen, one of our favorite listeners, she was on the England and France. Also, she was on the Christmas Market Cruise in 156. So those are some different episodes. You can go back and get a flavor as to what really makes these trips so special. So, and I want to touch on just a couple things. Good morning, Loopy. We're getting some comments. Good morning, Lake. John Towler says, when I said there was no way I would book a staycation cruise on the Magic this summer, they live over in England. What I meant was we probably will. So stand by. John,
I mean, if they book that, you're coming on the show, John.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So. I actually was messaging with his wife over the weekend asking about that.
Oh, good. Yeah. So they may be going on a staycation. And John, you and Chris can hash out who has the better departure terminal.
We already know, John, how you feel about the Port Canaveral terminal.
Good morning to Kelly and good morning to Seth also. And John says, sure, if you'll have John, you're always welcome. Of course, you're always welcome. Okay, Chris, take it away. What's going on at Disneyland? How's that working out for people? Who can go?
So if you're a California resident, which, California is a big state, so you could live anywhere in California. You are allowed to attend Disneyland if you can get a reservation. So here's the thing.
Did you try to get one yet?
No, I'm not. No. Not right away. I'm gonna let the rush and then figure out where the cards land. Okay. Because the only people really making reservations right now are people who already had valid tickets.
Oh, right. And not annual pass holders, which
I obviously didn't have a valid ticket and they weren't reselling. So the people making passes or making reservations right now are people who had extra days on tickets when the pandemic closed. Or, and this is important, I don't know if it's like this in Florida, but in California, to save time at the gate, you can buy your tickets at a grocery store and they're not for a specific date. It's just sort of like, buy a 2-day park hopper ticket at Ralph's. And then you have that ticket, that physical ticket. And so it's people like that who, a year, 2, 3 years ago bought these physical tickets and haven't used them yet. They can go online, link that ticket to their account, and make a reservation. It's not very different than Disney World. You have to have a Disney account to do it. You have to have a linked ticket, and then you can make a reservation. Really important here. They're reopening Grand Californian. If you are able to book a Grand Californian hotel room, but you don't have a theme park reservation, you will be staying in a hotel and glancing at the gates and not going to that theme park, because a hotel stay does not guarantee a park stay or a park admission. So there's a lot of interesting things. There are millions and millions and millions of people in Southern California, very close to Disneyland. So it's not like Florida at all in terms of the crushing local demand, which is one reason why they have not opened it up nationally. Also, the governor has set standards for like safety. They don't want a bunch of tourists flying in to visit theme parks right now. That being said,
let's just a little ironic, since all the tourists flew in for the whatever the Taste of Disneyland or
Touch
California
of
Adventure.
Disney, Touch of
Mhm.
Disney, totally. It's a weird, it's weird that for these outdoor eating events, it's whatever goes, and then for the actual opening of the theme parks, I think the challenge with that is, you open the theme parks and there are a lot of indoor experiences.
No, we get it. It's it's a little.
It's interesting. One thing I'll flag for everybody is that not all attractions are opening when the park opens. Certainly none of the shows or major nighttime entertainment will be there. The theme park hours will also be shorter than typical for Disneyland. However, the governor of California has said that he wants California to be fully reopened by June 15th.
I like how they just, all these places come up with arbitrary dates about when things are going to happen. I'm sorry. So this is the date the pandemic ends. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really fully understand that. The only logic I can get with June 15th versus Florida just being like, we're open, come to Miami, is that in theory, a lot of people can be fully vaccinated by June 15th. In fact, everyone in my immediate friend group is now vaccinated. And that's because their age group opened up and they were able to find vaccine appointments. So I'm just flagging that, or is already vaccinated, half vaccinated, or has an appointment to be vaccinated sometime in the next month. Like, let's say it that way. But my point is, most everyone I know who's eligible to be vaccinated will be certainly fully vaccinated by June 15th. And so if that has, and also the California numbers are going down and down and down. So maybe there's logic here. I'm not fully sure. What I will say is that it won't be the same Disneyland, just like it's not the same Disney World as before the pandemic, but it will be something. And I think for people so starved for this, it'll be a good experience. Steve and I were supposed to go to Touch of Disney this weekend, but soccer and football have ruined our plans. I hate sports. And so Steve's kids are now unable to make it for sports things. So I'm going. We'll cover Touch of Disney here, but just not with Steve and I. Instead, it'll be Steve and Christy interviewing me about my time at Touch of Disney. But we'll talk a little bit about what that experience was like, and maybe my experience at Touch of Disney will give people some tips on what it might be like when the theme parks actually reopen. Also, one more thing, Steve, I know I'm talking too much. June 4th is when Avengers Campus is officially opening. So June 4th is the announced date. And when that opens, there will be a new restaurant where all the food is gigantic because it's themed after Ant-Man, which I think is a funny concept for a restaurant. And there will be a new attraction that is Spider-Man themed, where everybody's like shooting webs and killing spider bots. So that's happening this summer. It's announced. It's going forward. We're super excited about that. Sometime before June, we will be at Disneyland. It just really depends on what the dust settles.
Well, stay tuned. I'm sure things will change as they kind of go along too. So hopefully the rest of us that are dying to get back to Disneyland can come visit your state again soon, Chris, and just spend some time in the magic that is Disneyland and Disney California Adventure. Well, I guess as we kind of finish up, anything else that you guys have, Christy or Chris, before we sign off today? No? Adventures by Disney. I mean, I am super excited. I know our family's super excited to go. I can't believe it. We're less than a year away from now. And if this one goes as I think that it from what we've heard everybody else talk about it, I'm sure that we'll be looking for other ones in the future. So for those of you who don't have a travel agent, would like to use Christy as yours, Christy, how can people get a hold of you?
You can find me all over the web at Pack Your Pixie Dust. And my website is packyourpixiedust.com. And finally, you can email me at Christy@packyourpixiedust.com. And it is in our regular podcast show notes if you would like to look it up there. My website also has a phone number, so you can reach out. I believe my Facebook page also has my phone number, so you can literally call me, not text. It's a landline. Call me and we can help you plan your vacation.
Also, I use Christy as my travel agent. Highly recommend. She's reachable at 3 a.m, 4 a.m, 5 a.m. So
yeah, especially last night. I was up all night. I could have emailed you back at any hour of the day.
So that whole going to bed before pirate night kicks off, that's just always been a myth over the years.
Well, I go to bed.
Oh, okay. It's whether you actually get some sleep. All right. Anyways, well, thanks you guys. Thanks, Christy. Thanks, Chris, for kind of touching on Adventures by Disney. For those of you looking to book, I want to wish you the best in finding your adventure. And hopefully, as things go forward, we're all going to be back out there traveling soon. And we look forward to your experience down at Touch of Disney, Chris. Next week we'll get that out. So
yeah, we'll tell you all about it, even though you can't buy tickets. So if you don't have a ticket, you're really just vicariously living through me. But fun to vicariously live.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody for taking a listen, and we'll have a new episode out either tomorrow or Wednesday. I got a little bit behind as far as skiing this weekend. Hopefully I'm going to get that one out tomorrow. If not, I'll be out on Wednesday talking about our family stay at Aulani. So all the best to everybody out there. Be well, stay safe, and we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.